everyone, and thank you, Sejal, for recording it. I did just see that go online. So I am the Director of Student Financial Services for University of Redlands. I'm going to apologize in advance if you hear dogs barking, because my two lovely dogs sleep all day and wait for me to come on things like this and then decide to start barking. So apologize in advance if that happens. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time sort of navigating the process and answering all of your questions. And then there will definitely be time at the end that we can address more questions as they come up. So thank you all for joining us. So just to get us started, we're going to talk about financial aid and billing process. So just as this year, as well as for sort of future years and what you can expect moving forward. We're going to do a very detailed walkthrough of the self-service portal, talk a lot about payment options, just share some other important information with you as you navigate this process, talk about outside scholarships, and then also paying for books and supplies. So you all probably have seen this in the financial aid publication that came to you with your award letter. If you haven't, it is available on the resources page on our website. So we are quite a few steps through this at this point, but hopefully you all have filed a FAFSA if you're interested in applying for financial aid. Many of you have deposited, and some of you probably did that several years ago, actually, at this point. You've received your financial aid award letter, hopefully submitted any missing information that you might have had so that your financial aid is all cleared and ready to go. And then last Friday, so the 10th, you received your billing statement. That went to the student's email address, and we'll talk more about how parents can get that information in just a few minutes. But it went to the student's University of Redlands email address. Those bills are due by August 10th, and there's a number of different ways that you can sort of clear that balance, and we'll talk about that moving forward. Then classes will start. We put in September because that was our original plan when we printed this publication, and we have now moved it up to August, which you're all familiar with. We will apply financial aid to the student's accounts, and then if you have a credit, we will refund it to you. And then we will start this process all over again. The FAFSA becomes available on October 10th, so it's right around the corner now. And it is due by March 2nd each year. So just some things to keep in mind as we navigate this process. Before we get started, there are really, for parents, 3 things that you want to keep in mind, and we will go into more detail. But the first is that self-service is a very important portal for all things for your student while they're at Redlands. So that's going to include all financial as far as tax information, financial aid information, student account information, any missing documents. There's also what's called a proxy user, which allows you as the parent or older sibling or grandparent or anyone else who's involved in helping the student navigate this process get access to this portal. The student does have to authorize it, and they can limit what people see. But that is an important piece of the self-service portal, is giving those people that are not the student access to see it. FERPA, we will talk about a little bit more, but important to keep in mind that there is a law called the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act that does limit our ability to communicate with parties other than the student unless there is a specific release on file, and we'll talk about how to release that information. And then lastly is this parent update form. And so many of you may have helped your student fill out the common application, and on that application they put your email address. If they didn't put your email address, we don't have your information at this point. If they put an old email address or work email address, or there's a typo or any of those things, we also don't have your information. So we recommend you go into this link, just redlands.edu/parent update form, and give us your updated information, so that we can go ahead and make sure that we have you on all our distribution lists moving forward. Spend a little bit more time talking about what a proxy user is versus a FERPA grantee. So a proxy user gives you access to the self-service portal. It's authorized by the student. It means that you will get notifications in your email, like when bills become available. What it doesn't do is allow us to discuss your student's information with you. Any person can be a proxy user. It doesn't have to be a parent, but it is important that they are in our system. So if you don't see yourself as an option when you are setting up that sort of proxy user with your student, just contact Student Financial Services and we can assist you. Another important thing is that if you plan on paying your student's balance or assisting them with that process, this will allow you to be an authorized payer on their account. The way you get set up is by going to selfservice.redlands.edu. Your student will authorize that access. And if you have any questions or want to see screenshots that walk you right through the process, go to redlands.edu/proxy, and we have a great FAQ resource there. The FERPA grantee is, again, that Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act that I was talking about earlier. And what that allows us to do is really have a conversation with you or any other third party about your student's record. This can include grades. For purposes of today, it really means financial aid and billing information. But this is what really opens up our ability to have that conversation. So you may call us and have proxy users set up, and what we're going to share with you is, unfortunately, we can't further discuss the account, but we can, instruct you on how to log in as a proxy user. And so if you are a part of your student's process, and we will definitely recommend that you do both of these things. The proxy user is a one-time grantee, so that your student only has to do it once. For the FERPA access, your student has to renew that access every year. It's only valid for one academic year at a time. So for you parents that are returning students, your student may have done it last year, and you call us and we say, unfortunately, we don't have that FERPA access, and it's just because they need to renew it. And again, that's a federal regulation, and so we just make sure that we follow that. So what you're probably all here to talk about today is how do we pay this bill and how do we understand it? And so the first thing that you want to understand is, how do I access it? So you're going to go to self-service, and this is what the homepage looks like. Whether you're a proxy user or a student, you're going to see this. If you are a proxy user, when you log in, make sure you choose your student. There's going to be a little pop-up, and it's going to say, do you want to view your account or your student's account? You want to see your student's account because you probably don't owe us a bill, only your student does. You're then going to go ahead and click on the box in the upper left-hand corner that says Student Finance, and it is going to take you to this screen. And this screen is just an overview of your student's record. This particular student example shows a balance for fall 2020. They did all the things right and paid off their spring balance and their fall balance. So that is in good shape. So you'll notice that they owe just under $2,000 for this upcoming year. So if I'm the student, I now want to log in and see what that balance is made up of, and make sure I pay it before that August 10th deadline. So if I click on the fall 2020 link, and if my computer cooperates, I see this page, and this is the account activity page, and it allows me to look at the breakdown of all of my charges. I'm not going to go into detail into each and every one, but if you have questions about your individual charges, we will cover some of those probably in the frequently asked questions a little bit later in the presentation, but we're also happy to set up an individual appointment with you. But what you will notice is this student has charges of about just under $27,000. They've already made a payment of about $870, $880, and they have a total of financial aid, including loans, grants, scholarships, of that $24,000. So we know we're working with about a $2,000 balance. Once we're comfortable with what that account activity shows, we may want to print a statement. So if you see in the upper right-hand corner, there is a little link that says View Statement. That will allow you to access a PDF of the detail of your student account charges printed out, share it with an employer or an outside scholarship if they want to see that. Or just print it out and save it for your records. We're then going to navigate back to our student account summary page because we're ready to make a payment. So if you see in the upper right-hand corner, there is a payment options link. And what we're going to go ahead and do is select the payments and payment plans, because that is what is going to navigate us over to our payment processor. So you will see here that your next page just shows your payments and payment plans. You will actually see an amount due on this if you were a student. This is my student account, so I did not actually have a balance. And then, the computer goes a little bit faster than mine. You are going to be transitioned into Nelnet. So we partner with a company called Nelnet, which many of you may have heard of, for our payments and our payment plans. The first time you log in, they are going to ask you some additional questions to verify your demographic information and have you set up some codes unique to you so that if you do need to call their customer service and support team, they can verify who you are and that you have access to this information over the phone. So just know there will be a couple screens that you need to enter through before you see this payment activity screen. What you'll notice here is this is the student example we were looking at earlier, same balance of just under $2,000. They have the option of making a payment or setting up a payment plan. So you would then just click that link, follow the instructions, enter your payment information. The whole thing probably takes about 15 minutes. One important note is that for our students in the College of Arts and Sciences, we do only accept ACH, so we will be asking you for your bank account routing and account number. We don't accept credit or debit cards at this point of the payment process. If you are someone, so that really summarizes kind of where we're at. If you walk through that, you will have seen all of the student account detail. Again, if you have any questions, let us know. But if you are a family or a student who doesn't want to use a one-time payment or a monthly payment plan to cover your balance, you have a number of different payment options. So one of those is the monthly payment plan. You will see that it's 5 months. So if you make your first payment in July, you will have a monthly payment in July, August, September, October, and November. And then we'll do this all over again for the spring, and you will have a payment in December, January, February, March, and April. There is a $35 one-time enrollment fee that goes directly to Nelnet because they service our payment plans. And again, you'll see that ACH option. Again, you do not have to pay online. We know some people would prefer to mail a check. If you do want to mail a check to make your payment as opposed to setting up a monthly payment plan or making an online ACH payment, you do need to make sure that we receive that check by August 10th. We had a lot of questions about if the postmark date is acceptable, and because we're trying to place students in classes and get everything squared away, we do need to have payment in hand by the 10th. If you don't want to just make payments either through payment plan or ACH, you have the option of additional student or parent loans. Student loans were already included on your student's financial aid award letter if they applied through the FAFSA or DREAM application or other financial aid application. In order for your student to accept those loans, they do need to complete a master promissory note, so that's an MPN, and an entrance counseling. And if it's a Redlands loan, they also need to complete a Truth in Lending Act disclosure. If your student has not done those yet, those loans will not be showing up on the student account balance as a reduction in the amount you owe. Your student started receiving notifications from us the first week in June, and we've sent several reminders. You can also find the links on our website. So if you're not sure if they have done that or they have any questions, they can definitely check self-service to see if it's been received. There's a missing document section that I'll show you a little bit later. Or they can check their email and go in and complete those documents. One benefit of sort of where the world is at right now is that we're seeing the lowest interest rates for student loans that we've seen in a very long time. So for this upcoming year, the subsidized and unsubsidized direct loan interest rates is at 2.75%, and then the Redlands loan is at a 5%. If after those loans have been applied to your student's account, there is still a balance and you're interested in using additional borrowing options to cover that balance, you have kind of two different roads you can go down. One is the Parent Plus loan. It is a federal loan. It behaves very similarly to your student's loans, except for it would be in a parent's name. You do have to be a biological, married, or adoptive parent to qualify for this loan. This year, the interest rate is at 5.3%, and it has an origination fee of 4.236. So that origination fee goes directly to the Department of Education. And if you borrow $10,000, they're charging you about $424 right off the top. For more information and link to apply for this loan, you can go to this website listed here. The other option is a private student loan. And there's a lot of different options here and probably a lot of things you've heard and read about them. Sometimes private student loans are not great, and sometimes they're really great options. So it really just depends on your individual situation and the loan you're able to secure. So the interest rates do vary by lender. We do recommend that you opt with a fixed rate, and most lenders will offer fixed and variable rates. And then very few actually require an origination fee, but we always recommend you check your terms and conditions. And as you're trying to decide what makes sense for you and your family, either a Parent Plus loan or a private student loan, we just recommend that you compare fixed interest rates, origination fees, repayment terms. And then one important item is, who do you want to be the primary borrower? If the student wants to be the primary borrower, or the parent wants the student to be a primary borrower, then a private student loan is probably the direction you want to go. Your student will likely need a cosigner because they are credit-based loans, and they are going to be looking for your student to have some type of established credit, which most students don't, but not all, so that could be an option. Parent Plus loan is a loan solely in the parent's name, and so it does become that parent's responsibility to repay. Both of these loan options will allow you to cover the full amount of the balance, and either one is perfectly acceptable for us. Some other funding options that we absolutely will work with are outside scholarships. So many students, particularly first-year students, as they prepared for their college journey, applied for scholarships through their community, through their high school, maybe through a parent's employer. And we will apply those as pending financial aid, so effectively reducing the amount you owe, if you notify us. So we do require a copy of the letter, certificate, any way that you were notified about that scholarship, and then we will apply it as a pending financial aid line item on your student account statement while we wait for that donor to actually send the money to the school. Most donors do send money directly to the University of Redlands or whatever the school of your choice is. Some directly to the student, but probably about 95% of them send the money to the school. Another option is the 529 plan. So there's a lot of different types. There's private college 529 plans. There's 529 plans through your employer or your state. We will work with any of them. And the important things to note is that you want to get in contact with your 529 plan now. Most of them do require a couple weeks of processing time, and they vary on what they will ask you for in order to issue payment. So some want that student account statement that we looked at earlier. Some will want a student schedule. Some will want proof of deposit. So you just want to make sure you get that conversation started and put in that request for funds. If for some reason that payment will not arrive before August 10th, we just ask that you notify us and provide proof that you've requested that payment to come to us so that we can ensure that your balance gets cleared before that deadline so that you're not charged a late fee or anything like that. And then lastly, we do work with a number of different employers who offer benefits to their employers or their employers' children. And so you'll just want to notify us of that or get the payment submitted. Frequently asked questions. So this is probably what my team, and I can see the calls coming in on my computer as I'm giving this presentation. A lot of what the questions are coming in right now. So probably the most prominent is why I don't see any of my financial aid on my bill, and why is that? Because I already got an award letter. And that's probably because you have some type of outstanding item. So if you go to self-service and you check the financial aid section of self-service, you can see all of your outstanding items. In this particular student example, you will see that the student has not completed their Redlands loan TILA. So this means that their Redlands loan is not being deducted from the amount they owe to the university. If you have outstanding items like verification or parent demographic form or anything else that was flagged on your FAFSA, you won't see any of your need-based financial aid applied to your bill. We recommend that you get that information to us as soon as possible. It generally takes us 5 to 7 business days to process. And then as soon as we have that financial aid applied, we will send you an updated billing statement with that information. Another question we get a lot is, I see a charge for student health insurance and I'm already covered through my parents' plan or my own plan or any other type of health insurance coverage. How do I get that charge removed? So we do require that all students carry health insurance, and all of our students were sent an email from our student affairs team with instructions on how to waive that health insurance charge. If your student didn't get that email or can't find it at this point, instructions can be found by searching student health insurance on our website. We partner with a company called Gallagher, so you will find that you're redirected and required to set up an account. And so we do just recommend that you go through that process as soon as possible if you're not planning on utilizing the university's health insurance coverage. One other item about the health insurance is that you do have to make sure it's waived but before the fall semester starts. I think the final deadline is actually September 10th, but we recommend you do it sooner rather than later, particularly if you're concerned about the charge on your bill. But if you don't go through that waiver process this summer, you have then enrolled in a health insurance plan for the full year. So you will see a charge not only for your fall semester, but also for your spring semester bill. Another question we get often is, why is my financial aid in a pending status? And so you'll notice when you log in that maybe your Pell Grant or your Cal Grant or your federal direct loans are showing as pending on the self-service screen. The only reason it's showing as pending is because those are funds coming from an outside entity. If it's your federal Pell Grant, those are funds from the federal government that the school, University of Redlands, doesn't actually receive from the federal government until the first day of school. So we can't apply it to your account until the funds come to us. But you will see that those pending scholarships, grants, or loans are being deducted from the total amount that you owe, because we know you will receive them once you start school. Another sort of question we get a lot, or important information, is that we do provide tuition insurance. We partner with a company called GradGuard, which is a higher ed exclusive tuition insurance company. And it is exactly what you would imagine. You're investing in your student's education, whether it be through a loan or a payment plan or a payment. And if for some unforeseen event that is health related, they have to withdraw or take a leave of absence, including coronavirus, it is covered through GradGuard. So if you're at all concerned about that, we do recommend that you go to this website and contact GradGuard. We are not the insurance provider, so unfortunately we can't answer specific details about it, but they are a great team, and so they can answer any questions you might have. Once school has started, and we are looking forward to that day, which seems to be arriving very quickly, your financial aid will disperse. So it will go from being in a pending status to a dispersed status. And if you have a credit on your account, so the total amount of your financial aid and payments exceeds the amount of your charges, we will issue you a refund. The refund will go to the student unless you borrowed a Parent Plus loan. And those refunds will be sent within 7 to 14 days of school starting or the credit occurring on the student's account. Either the refund will be mailed to the address on file, or the student can sign up for direct deposit through WebAdvisor, which is accessed through My Redlands. One other important thing to remember as you prepare for the start of the school is that even though you saw books and supplies on the award letter as a cost included in the cost of attendance, it's not something that the university directly supplies to you. And so what that means is that your student needs to come prepared to buy their books and supplies once they know their full class schedule, which happens after advising during orientation week. So there's tons of options for buying textbooks, rent, buy online. Amazon ships to the university, so it's very easy. We also have the on-campus bookstore, but do know that students need to come prepared with money, whether it be a Barnes & Noble gift card, an Amazon gift card, cash, credit, however you want to manage it with your student. But they will need to come prepared to purchase those books during the first week of school. And if we go back to this thought, you can use these financial aid reimbursements if perhaps you borrowed more than you needed to in hopes of using that loan to help pay for your books, but the money won't get to your student in time. So it would really be used to reimburse yourself for books rather than waiting to get your financial aid refund to purchase them. Another important note, as your student starts school and is thinking about, what it's going to look like to not be thinking about paying your balance and get through this summertime, is what does it mean to maintain my financial aid eligibility? And as a part of financial aid eligibility, you have to maintain satisfactory academic progress. And so what this means is that the university guarantees 8 semesters of financial aid because we also expect our students to graduate in 8 semesters. In order to do this, you have to take an average of 16 credits per semester. So 16 credits for 8 semesters, 4 years. In order to maintain your financial aid eligibility on an individual term level, you have to complete at least 12 credits per semester. That's federally mandated, and it just means that, let's see, so 16 credits on average, right? 12 credits per semester. So maybe one semester you take a little bit less, one semester you take a little bit more, but it always has to be more than those 12 credits per semester. And then lastly, your student needs to maintain a 2.0 GPA for total financial aid. And if they have any merit, like an achievement award or a talent scholarship like music, they do need to maintain a 3.0 to maintain that award. Lastly, we have a ton of resources available on our webpage. The Student Financial Services FAQ has every question that we could come up with. And if you feel like something is missing, please let us know. We would be happy to add it there. All the payment options that I talked through today are available on the payment options webpage you see here. And then for you students or families that are new to the university, we definitely recommend you check out the new student welcome page. This includes your new student checklist, information about orientation, the dorm rooms, everything else you can think of. So with that, I will take any questions that you may have. And admittedly, Sejal, I did not watch them because it was distracting me. So if you want to let me know if there's any questions that haven't been answered at this point.
Hi, Emily. Yeah, so there's quite a few questions actually in the Q&A. And so some have been answered, some haven't. And so let me, and Lauren or Atia, if you want to jump on now, that's fine, especially if there's a question that you saw a lot of. Then you're welcome to also jump on so that way you can maybe bring up some of the questions that you've received a lot of. But I'm going to scroll up and kind of just review some of the questions maybe that don't look like they've been answered. So I see quite a few questions about loans, and so maybe if you could go back and talk a little bit more about how to apply for kind of loans, talking about maybe a little bit of the difference between private loans versus federal loans versus unsub versus sub, but I see a few questions that just talking about loans and promissory notes. So maybe if you could just review that process again.
Sure. So the first type of loan that we would recommend you consider if you're considering using loans to pay for your education or your students' education is the federal direct loans that were included on the student's award letter. So on this screen, that is the federal subsidized direct loan and the federal unsubsidized direct loan. The federal subsidized loan is at a 2.75% interest rate, but there's no interest while the student is enrolled at least half time in school. And so that interest will just start occurring once the student goes into repayment. So that's sort of loan option number one. Another option is the federal unsubsidized direct loan. Again, this is an interest rate of 2.75%, but interest does start accruing right away. So there isn't a waiver of that interest while the student is enrolled in school. Another good option is our Redlands loan. So that is a loan funded by University of Redlands. There is no interest on that loan while the student is in school, and so it is subsidized. But there is interest accruing at a rate of 5% once that student goes into repayment. In order to borrow those loans, your student does have to complete loan documents. And so they were sent a number of emails in their Redlands email account. And in order to do that, so they just click on the link, it takes them either to the federal loan site or the University of Redlands loan site, which includes UNISA. And so that's going to be where you complete your master promissory note, your entrance counseling, and then if it's a Redlands loan, you will also have to complete a TILA. and ATILA is the Truth in Lending Act disclosure. The whole process takes maybe 30 minutes. So that would be your first option if you're considering student loans, is all or a combination of these 3 loans you see on this page. If after that you continue to have questions, if you continue to need additional funding, you can do a Parent Plus loan or a private student loan. It's totally up to the family which one of these they want to go with. The university doesn't offer any judgment as to which one is better, because it really depends on your individual situation, which might offer you better terms. Important things to note about the Parent Plus loan is that it is a federal loan. The interest rate is at 5.3%. Interest starts accruing right away, so when that loan is dispersed. The origination fee is just over 4%. And in order to borrow that, people can go to this redlands.edu/SFS/plus. And there's all this information I'm sharing with you now, plus a link to the application. In order to log into that application, parents will use their FAFSA login, so the FSA ID and password that they use when they file the FAFSA. A brief credit check, it happens immediately, whether or not you're approved or denied will be completed. And then if the parent is approved, they will be asked to complete a master promissory note. And that is what actually secures the loan and finishes out that process. The school is then notified, and we will send the student an updated award letter notifying them that that plus loan has been applied to their account. Private student loans, there's a lot of variety because there's a number of lenders out there. And so we do recommend that you go to this webpage listed below, the SFS/alternative loans. We have a private loan comparison tool called ELM there that allows you to look at different terms, interest rates, and also apply directly through that online portal. The biggest sort of difference is perhaps who the borrower is. Most private student loans, the borrower is the student with the parent or someone else, a creditworthy person as a cosigner. The Parent Plus loan is a loan solely in a parent's name. I hope that sort of answers some of the loan questions.
It looks like there was a question about if someone pays off their loan early, are there any penalties for that for the various loans? So if someone takes out the Redlands loan, though it's not due to after they graduate, if they pay it off early, is there a penalty? And do you know for some of the other loans, if there's any penalties for paying off the loans early?
Sure. So for the Redlands loan and the federal loans, there's no penalty for early repayment. So that's the federal direct loans, the subsidized and unsubsidized, and the federal Parent Plus loan. There's no penalty for early repayment, meaning you can pay it off this year, you can pay it off in 5 years, or you can use the full 10-year repayment period. Most, well, all of the private loans that we have listed on our website do not have penalties for early repayment. But we always recommend, as you're going through the application process with your lender, that you just make sure you read all the fine print and ensure that there's no penalties for early repayment, because they are private loans. They have the ability to change that and adjust their terms depending on the borrower.
We've had a few people, hold on, I've seen this question come up multiple times. Let me see if I can answer it. Oh, someone wanted to know, and I know the answer for this, but wanted you to be able to just provide information about this. Can a family have multiple, can multiple people take out a loan? So could a student and a parent take out a loan? Also questions about how, if you need to, I guess, deny or say you don't want the loan, what does that process look like?
Great. So yes, you can do multiple types of loans. There are situations where the student borrows their loans and one parent borrows a Parent Plus loan, and then maybe the second parent wants to partner with their student in a private student loan. So there's no restrictions on sort of the amount of loans you can borrow. It's also, there's no restriction on payment plan or one-time payment versus a student loan. So if you wanted to maybe take out a loan for $5,000 and then do the rest through a monthly payment plan, that's absolutely an option. If you know you don't want any of the loans offered to you in your award letter, first I would say just don't do the master promissory note and entrance counseling. And also, you can go into self-service and you can reject the loan, and we will be notified through that portal that you've told us that you don't want that loan, and that's on the financial aid tab of self-service.
Awesome. There's another question here, or a few questions about work opportunity and how that works. So if you could just talk a little bit about what that looks like, since I know we have some students who have that on their financial aid package. Yes.
Sure. So the work opportunity allows a student to get a job on campus. Almost every department on campus works with students. It's a maximum of 10 hours a week. Most of the positions are at minimum wage, and that student will receive a pay every 2 weeks as they work, just like the rest of us who work for University at Redlands. And so what it doesn't do is apply directly towards paying your balance. So the balance that you see in the student account statement that you see on self-service will not have any mention of the work study award because you do have to pay for that separately. Some students will save some of their work study money to pay for future semesters. Some students use it to help their family with the monthly payment plan. I think the majority of students use their work study money either to pay for expenses like books and supplies or just trips to Target or just, you know, whatever else they want to do while they're here in Redlands.
And we have a few people asking about, as it relates to COVID-19 and the fall. So a variety of questions, some wanting to know if we're providing a discount on tuition, should someone do online classes, and then other people wanting to know, should something change this fall, if, for example, someone's on campus and we have to go online and they have to go home, kind of what happened this spring. Do you have any information about kind of what would happen in terms of billing or payments?
Sure. So I actually intended to start this way, and I clearly sort of blocked coronavirus out of my brain for today, which is remarkable. But I have some answers. The first answer is that should a student be enrolled in all online classes, there is not a discount on tuition. We only are offering about a little over 20% of our classes are being offered fully online as of today, and we all recognize that the world is ever changing, and so I'm speaking to information as I have it in this moment. And so we recommend that students work with their advisor, check their student portal, or reach out to the dean's office if they have questions about the courses they're taking and the modality at which they will be taught. The dean's office sent out a memo with a lot of information that I will not try and sort of reiterate back to you here today about the work that the academic side of the house has done to ensure that we are offering a Redlands quality education in all of our modalities. For those of you that are returning students or families, spring was a crazy time for all of us, right? So we made a transition in a way that I don't think any school ever wanted to, and that was to an online modality partway through a term with no warning. That is now what fall will look like. We have now have warning, and we have done that work, and the academic side of the house has put in a lot of time and effort to ensuring that you have a great experience no matter what that modality looks like. And I would refer you to look at the memo by Dean Brown about what more you can expect. And if you still have concerns, absolutely reach out to the dean's office or work with your advisor to really get a better understanding of what your individual fall semester will look like. With regard to return to campus and refunds for room and board, I can't speak to that right now. I know we all are hoping that we will not have to make that adjustment, but I don't have an answer to that question right now.
Okay, so let me. So I'm scrolling through. A lot of you have questions that are very specific to your situation. And so unfortunately, uh, we are going to try to download this chat. That way we can kind of comb through, because some of them we can't quite address in this open a fashion, because we're not able to look into your specific account at this moment and give you an answer. So know that for some of you who've asked questions about like your specific account, or this isn't showing up, or this kind of looks kind of fuzzy, we are going to try to download this chat. But no, I know Lauren and Atia and Reagan and I, we're trying to address these questions, but some of them, again, because they're specific in nature, we're not able to look up your account at this very moment, and we wouldn't be able to share that information publicly with everyone. So I just wanted to say that, just so that you all know we're not ignoring your questions, we're trying to get to them, but some of them aren't something we can do over an open chat like this that's being recorded in front of a lot of people. That would definitely violate FERPA laws and all kinds of other laws and rules at the institution if we share your information. And so let me scroll and see if there's any other general questions. So there's a lot of other questions popped up about work study. So I'll just try to maybe address those. Know that if you are an incoming student, there will be an orientation in August that will show you how to access the work study jobs. And that will show you how to access work study jobs, what's available, what's the application process, tips for success, and how you can put your best foot forward as you're looking for jobs on campus. Know that work study covers mostly jobs on campus, though we do have relationships with a few organizations. I'm not sure what that will look like this fall because of COVID-19. But I know sometimes work study students will do tutoring with kids or work with the local school district. Again, because of COVID, not quite sure if some of those opportunities will be available this fall, but certainly offices on campus and other events and whatnot on campus will need people to help with things. And so know that the process begins if you're a new student during orientation. That's when you'll learn more information about the process. That's when you'll learn how to use the website. That's when you'll have access to be able to search and see what type of jobs are on campus, the hours, the expectations, and what that looks like. And you'll begin that search the first few weeks in August.
I was reading a couple questions here, Sajal, as you were.
Yes. Are there any that you would like to address, or are there any that you're seeing multiple that you would like to address, Emily?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. One, you can change proxy and FERPA whenever you would like, or actually your student can change proxy and FERPA whenever you would like. So you can add it, remove it, retract it, however you see fit. I also saw a question about how do you know if your loans have been approved? So the federal subsidized and unsubsidized direct loan, if you go into self-service and you look at the missing items section, it will tell you whether or not we have received your entrance counseling and master promissory note. And you can also check your student account statement, because if it's on there, then you know it has been approved and dispersed. There was one more I saw here. Oh, then another one about the timing and method of payment. So we definitely recommend that you start, if you're going with a private student loan, that you start that process as soon as possible. Depending on your individual situation, it can take anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks to get approved. If you have not been approved by August 10th, we do recommend that you start a monthly payment plan. And then if you do receive a loan that covers that full balance, we can refund you the amount of that payment. But we do recommend that you have something in place before that August 10th deadline to ensure that that balance is cleared. If you start that process now, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to get it approved. In most instances, the feedback we receive from families is it takes 3 to 5 business days, sometimes 7, to kind of get things moved through, as long as you're responsive to the lender if they ask for supporting documentation like pay stubs or tax returns.
Also see
after questions.
Another one about loans. For people who are applying for the Parent Plus loan, what is the loan period? the person is saying that it says to ask the school for the dates.
Yeah, so if you, I don't know that I'm going to say them off the top of my head because I don't remember exactly when spring ends, but maybe Atia or Lauren, you could stick that in the chat. But we do have our academic calendar published on the website. So it's going to be the first day of school through the last day of school. And I will leave it to Atia or Lauren to put those exact dates in there.
And then a lot of questions about loans. And then another question about, I'm just going to read the question. How do we know the entire loan amount to apply for? Does the lender pay you for the entire year, or do they just do a loan right now for the fall and then do another one for the spring?
They should apply for the full year. We will then disperse it into, and the lender will disperse it in 2 chunks associated with the fall semester and the spring semester. Unless you're someone who utilizes our health insurance, that is the only thing that is more expensive in the spring than it is in the fall. So the fall covers you the start of school through December, and then spring covers you January 1 through August 31st usually. So it's a longer period of time. So the health insurance is more expensive. So a good rule of thumb is to double the amount of your fall balance. And that is how much you would apply for in the loan. If you are borrowing a Parent Plus loan, and there's instructions on how to calculate this on our webpage, but if you're borrowing a Parent Plus loan, you do want to take into consideration the origination fee. So you will need to increase the amount of the loan you borrow by the amount that origination fee will be. So the example of $10,000, if that's how much you need to borrow about $10,500 to ensure that the origination fee that goes directly to the Department of Education is covered.
We have a question about documents. Someone wanting to know if they have to complete all the documents, even if they don't apply to them.
That's a good question. All documents that are showing as outstanding in your checklist should apply to you. The only time that would not be true is if you're being asked to complete like a master promissory note and entrance counseling, and you've made the decision that you're not going to utilize those loans, then you do not need to do the master promissory note and entrance counseling. If you tell us you don't want those loans through the self-service portal, we will then waive those requirements so you don't see them as outstanding items any longer. But you really shouldn't have items on your checklist that don't apply to you. There was also a question I saw pop up about whether or not someone would receive a phone call if they didn't complete all their outstanding items. And we at this point aren't making outbound phone calls. As you can imagine, there's quite a volume of inbound phone calls, but we do recommend you check the self-service portal as well as your new student checklist if you're a new to the university family, because you can see on there if all of your items have been submitted.
So someone actually, let me see. Just want to let you all know that I did include, oh, perfect. Reagan and I were thinking the same thing. We did include the link where you can sign up for appointments. So you can sign up for appointments with SFS one-on-one or admissions. If it's for some general questions just about kind of basic financial aid process, some of those are things that admissions can help you with one-on-one. Some people have been asking questions about things looking maybe a little bit different on their account or their checklist. Again, that's something we'd have to kind of FaceTime with you or talk with you to be able to see what your account is showing in order to kind of help you figure out what the issue is. And so those are things that we can absolutely talk with you one-on-one in an appointment. And so if you use the links that Reagan and I put in the chat, you can see what's available either for SFS or what's available again for meeting with an admissions counselor. Know that there's a lot more availability within our office in the Office of Admissions than Student Financial Services, but both are available. And again, we're going to try to keep getting through the questions, but there's a lot more questions than us. And so we're going to try to get through them all. But if we don't answer your question, We've provided emails for admissions and for SFS, and then also wanted to make sure that everyone has those links so that way we can talk with you and your family one-on-one, and answer some of your questions that are a little bit more nitty-gritty, or questions that are very specific to your situation, or something that you're maybe seeing on your account. Again, we would need to look at that with you in order to figure out what that is and why it's there. And so please do utilize the links, or certainly email us so that way we're able to help get you the information you need. And so I'm not quite sure if you discussed this earlier, but here's a question that was specifically about COVID-19, wanting to know in terms of the tuition insurance plan, if their student got sick with COVID-19 during the semester, would the tuition insurance plan pay a refund because of that, or would something like COVID-19 be excluded? I don't know if you would know that level of detail about the tuition insurance plan, but.
Yeah, so GradGuard is covering COVID illness related withdrawals. So I can say that much, that they are covering coronavirus as a acceptable sort of sickness or covered expense. But if you are considering it, I would highly recommend you look at GradGuard's website, because they have a very robust sort of question and answer and FAQ of exactly what is covered. And they also have a phone number where they could look at your sort of individual questions and concerns and really just make sure you understand it, and also you're getting the exact level of detail. As you may imagine, my team is not insurance actuaries, and so we leave that to the experts to make sure you get all the right answers. It looks like there's a number of questions about sort of the anticipated financial aid and pending financial aid. So I should have put a screenshot of this in the presentation, but I do want you to know that as long as it's showing in that anticipated financial aid, pending financial aid column, it is being deducted from your balance. And so the reason it shows as pending as opposed to dispersed is because the university hasn't actually received that money yet. So the federal government, the state government, and outside parties won't actually give any money to the school until the term starts, because that's when we can essentially authenticate that you actually showed up for the first day of school. And at that moment, we will then transmit that financial aid to your student account, and so you'll see it move over to the dispersed column. And so that's your federal direct loans, your Pell Grant, your Cal Grant, all of those outside awards that aren't funded directly by University of Redlands.
Emily, I'm not sure if you already talked about this, but can you talk about when loans are actually dispersed to the institution? I believe I've read a few questions wanting to know when the money's actually kind of released and how that works with the date for which people need to have taken care of the bill.
Okay, so kind of two answers to that question. Loans need to be approved and sent to the university by August 10th. Really, it should be about a week before that, so we have time to process it, right? So you want to see that loan applied to your account by August 10th. Excuse me. The dispersed part, or when will the lender actually give us the money, doesn't happen until the first day of school. But that's okay. We recognize that. That's just a part of the financial aid process, which is why there's that anticipated financial aid or pending financial aid column on your student account statement. So effectively, we know you're covered. We just have to wait for the third party to release those funds. I think that should answer. But if you are applying for an outside loan, we ask that you finish that application no later than August 1st or 2nd, so that it can get to us and we can get it applied to your account before that August 10th deadline.
Emily, do you know, in terms of the health insurance waiver, do you know if that's something that has to be waived each year, or once they do it as an incoming student, if that's something that's set off 4 years in terms of having to go through that process and billing?
They have to re-waive it every year. So they have to
Okay.
provide confirmation that they have an active health insurance plan at the start of each year. So students who went through this process last summer still did get that notification from Student Affairs and have to make sure they provide that updated confirmation of coverage.
Emily, can you, I don't know if you have the information or feel comfortable talking through the Redlands Promise and kind of what that is. We've had a few people talk about the Redlands Promise and tuition and what that's about.
Sure. So I think I can probably provide a top level overview as it applies to financial aid and
Yeah.
so the Redlands Promise is the university's guarantee that as long as you as a student or your student does everything they're supposed to, that we will not get in their way of completing their degree in 4 years. And so that you heard me talk about it when I talked about satisfactory academic progress. I said we expect our students to graduate in 8 semesters or 4 years, and that mirrors exactly our Redlands Promise. So we guarantee 8 semesters of financial aid, and we ask that our students enroll in those 16 units per term to ensure that they're on track to graduate. And work very closely with our students, and our students work with their advisors to ensure that they get the classes they need, and all of that. I can't really speak to the academic side of it. That is outside of my area of expertise. But in personal experience, I've had students work with the dean's office and work with their faculty advisors to ensure that classes that they need to take sequentially in order to be on track to graduate, that they understand all of that. That even if they want to study abroad, that they figure out how to fit that into their plan so they're still graduating in 8 semesters. And so it's really the university's promise that not only it is your goal and your students' goal to graduate in 8 semesters, but it's our goal for you as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I was explaining that it's a partnership. That essentially, if you're doing your part as a student and you're taking the required classes that's set forth by the university and your advisor and your department, and you're passing your classes, you're taking your 16 units. If you're doing your part, the we as an institution partner with you to make sure that you're getting what you need to successfully kind of make your way through your curriculum and graduate in 4 years' time. But and Emily, there was a few people wanting to know if they're wanting to just pay maybe a portion of their bill, or maybe they have family members or scholarship organizations who are helping them kind of pay for college. How does that happen? Do they wire the money in? Do they send a check? But what is that process like? Where do they send the money?
Yeah, so outside scholarships, they should send the money to Student Financial Services, and they should notify us ahead of time that they're going to get that scholarship, so we can notate that they're getting it, because we will apply it as some anticipated financial aid. If it's a family member, sometimes a grandparent, you can make them a proxy user and they can make a payment on your student account, or they are welcome to mail a check. If you mail checks, we always recommend that you make it out to University of Redlands, mail it to the university's address, which I think I have here. And then ensure that the student's name and student ID number are on the check so that we can link it to the appropriate student to apply that payment. We do accept wire transfers. We don't receive them very often for domestic students, but it is a common method of payment for our international students. And again, we have wire transfer instructions that we can absolutely make available to you if you want to go that route. But for most people, it's less expensive if you have the option to either make an ACH payment through our online portal or mail a check.
And Emily, for people who maybe have a scholarship that requires some sort of verification for enrollment or whatnot, kind of what any advice on what they should do, who to contact in order to provide that, so that way the money can be dispersed to the institution? I know we get that question every year of kind of what do people do?
Yeah. So students can get their enrollment confirmation through self-service. It's managed by the registrar's team, but they can actually go online and get that at any time. We get that question not only for scholarships, but also for things like discounts on car insurance and other things associated with needing to have full-time enrollment at a college. So that is available through there. If you need a specific form filled out and your scholarship agency won't just accept our generic enrollment confirmation, then you would contact the office of the registrar.
Emily, maybe if you and I want to take one other scroll, it is at 5 o'clock. And so, or Lauren or Atia, Reagan as well, you can send it to me. If there is another question that maybe someone's posted multiple times, or if there is another topic that you're just getting a lot of questions of, feel free to either unmute yourself and share it with Emily or type it into the chat. I just want to let everyone know again that we are recording this. And so we will make sure that this is available so that way you can, on your own time, take your time, kind of review some of the slides with Emily and kind of take your time and listen to the information on your own. Also want to let you know that again, we're trying to answer as many of the questions as possible. But please, 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 if we didn't get to your questions, please contact us via either the admissions@redlands.edu or sfs@redlands.edu. Also, we've included the links so you can set up an appointment. We'd be happy to also talk with you one-on-one, especially some of those questions or some of those things that were directly related to your account, or maybe things aren't matching or you're seeing something, you're not quite sure what's there. Again, we want to make sure that you understand what you're seeing in your account, but that is something that we would have to help you with more so on a one-on-one type of situation. So that way we can review it with you and help you understand what's there and why it's there. And if something looks funky, then we can certainly help you rectify it. But any Emily or Lauren or Atia or Reagan, anything as you have been scrolling through that you'd like to bring up for Emily to answer before we end. And again, I know there's still a lot of questions here. And so we are going to download this chat so that way we can go through it and either contact you or maybe try to email you or call you to make sure you get the information you need. But again, also please feel free to reach out to us so that way we make sure you understand what's in your account, you understand loans and payment plans and billing options, and just any general questions you might have about the fall and the semester and how things are going to work. We know that things are kind of rapidly changing and we are trying to keep everyone up to date on the changes that are happening. But certainly if there is any confusion, please let us know and we will try to either answer your question or get you connected to people on campus who can answer your question.
Yeah, I think Sajal, there's a number of questions that I think will require additional follow-up from us, but I think as far as the general ones, from my quick scroll, it looks like we have covered just about most of them. And so thank you all for joining us today. Sajal, thank you for having this idea and getting it all set up for us. And the contact information for Student Financial Services is here on the last page. So please feel free to reach out to us. I will caveat that by saying we are doing our very best to return all inquiries within 2 days. We are all still working remotely given current conditions. And so some of our services technologically are challenging to us as we all work from our homes, my kitchen that we're in right now. So we appreciate your patience and understanding as we transition towards the start of the fall term.